Welcome, audience, to the Deep Dive. We are your hosts. Maybe think of us as your resident MTCs. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Castia. And yeah, behind the scenes, digging up all this amazing stuff we get to talk about, that's our producer and researcher, Psyguy.
That's right. Big thanks to Psyguy. He actually does some solo deep dives, too. You know, gives us NPCs a breather now and then.
Uh-huh. But today, we're both here ready to jump into one of those classic debates, a speculative battle.
And this one's pretty juicy. We're crossing universes, pitting two, well, very iconic fantasy figures against each other.
So who have we got?
Okay, in one corner.
Huh?
Selene, the, hyper-evolved vampire death dealer from the Underworld movies.
Ooh, nice. And facing her, Astarion, that very cunning vampire spawned from Baldur's Gate 3 who manages to ascend. And that's pronounced Astarion, just so everyone's clear.
Astarion. Got it. So our mission today, audience, is pretty straightforward. We're taking the analysis from the source material you provided, pulling out the key insights.
Right, figuring out what it says about how this hypothetical fight might actually play out.
Exactly. We're digging into their origins, their powers, strengths, weaknesses. And there's a special focus here on experience and mental conditioning. That seems really important in this matchup.
Definitely. And just to be clear, everything we're discussing, all the analysis points, it's all coming directly from that source material provided. That's our guide for this deep dive.
Okay, let's dive in then. Oh, and audience, quick heads up. Please forgive us if you hear any little sound glitches today. We're working on it.
So first off, the analysis kind of asks why we love these hypothetical battles so much. It's not just about who punches harder, right?
No, it's more than that. When you bring characters from completely different worlds together, like Underworld vampires versus D&D lore.
Yeah, you're forced to compare totally different systems, like biological enhancement versus dark rituals and, well, mind flayer tadpoles.
Exactly. It's fundamentally different power sources clashing.
And what the sources highlight about this specific fight, Selene versus Astarion, is how quickly it moves beyond just physical stuff.
Right. It becomes about, 600 years of pure warrior experience versus this sudden influx of really potent psionic power.
Precisely. It's a contest where things like mental toughness, resilience against, psychic attacks, those become just as critical, maybe even more critical than brute strength.
Okay, that really sets the stage. Let's get into the combatants then. Maybe start with Selene.
Sure, Selene. Elite Death Dealer Underworld series. She starts human way back in the 14th century, turned by the vampire elder Victor.
And her existence since then.
Yeah.
Basically 6 centuries of non-stop war against the like and just constant combat.
And relentless evolution, too. The analysis makes a big point about her becoming a purest vampire through the Corvinus strain.
Which was a massive power-up.
Huge. And then she got even further enhancements from the Nordic Coven later on. So she's not just old, she's actively, biologically, and, well, maybe magically enhanced over time, forged in war.
Okay, contrasted with Astarion. High elf originally.
Yeah, a high elf noble. But then turned into a vampire spawned by Cazador Zar. And his existence for nearly 2 centuries was horrific. Constant abuse, torment.
The source mentioned being sealed in a tomb for a year, surviving on rats.
Just unimaginable suffering. But then comes the twist that astral touch tadpole.
The illithid parasite, which sounds bizarre, but it actually freed him from Cazador, right? And suppressed his big vampire weakness.
Exactly. Like suddenly sunlight wasn't an issue, didn't need an invitation, stuff like that. A completely unexpected workaround for classic vamp limitations.
And it unlocks psychic powers, too.
Latent illithid powers, yeah. And then he went through that dark ritual, the one needing 7,000 souls.
To become the vampire ascendant. Wow, okay, 2 very different paths to power. So how does the analysis try to compare them?
Well, it starts with the basics, comparing combat stats, strength, speed, stuff like that.
Standard versus stuff.
Right. But the sources emphasize that the analysis had to evolve. As they looked closer, they realized Selene's mental state, her conditioning, her willpower, that needed a much deeper look. Especially her potential resistance to psychic attacks.
So it wasn't just an afterthought, it became central.
It became potentially decisive, yeah. They realized it wasn't a minor factor.
And for this fight, we're assuming peak versions of both.
Peak versus peak. Selene after the Nordic Coven boosts.
And Astarion is a full vampire ascendant with all those illithid tadpole powers maxed out.
The best they can possibly be. That's the setup.
Okay, let's break down Selene's profile first. The evolved death dealer.
So her origin story is pure trauma. Family slaughtered, tricked by Victor into blaming lichens that fuels her for centuries. Over 600 years as a death dealer, hunting, fighting, it forged this incredible mental discipline.
The source called her a disciplined soldier, right,
Correct.
with a militarily trained mind.
Exactly. Even before the big power-ups, her baseline vampire abilities were impressive. Super strength, healing, senses, hearing gunfire miles away. Crazy.
And older vampires are just stronger in that world, generally.
Generally, yeah. But then the Corvinus strain hybridization, that was the real game changer. Lifted her way beyond normal vampires.
Immunity to sunlight. That's huge for a vampire.
Massive. And her physical stats just went, well, stratospheric.
Flipping Vance, moving faster than sight, ripping spines out. The analysis put her strength at, like, 100 tons of force. Is that right?
That's the estimation, yeah. It's just incredible physical power.
And the healing factor.
Yep.
Like instant recovery from headshots.
Pretty much instantaneous for most things, yeah. Plus that weird blood memory thing, absorbing memories by tasting blood. Tactical advantage right there.
And then the Nordic Coven stuff pushed her speed, strength, endurance even higher. She's basically a walking weapon system built over centuries.
Absolutely. And her combat skills reflect that. Weapons, master pistols, rifles, blades, the analysis is second to none.
Hand-to-hand expert, too. Lethal efficiency.
And her mindset in combat is described as cold, dispassionate, resourceful. It's not just personality, it's tactical. Brutal precision, executing perfectly under extreme stress because of that mental detachment.
Okay, which brings us back to that mental fortitude aspect the analysis emphasized. Her indomitable will.
Yeah, and this wasn't just gifted to her, it was forged. Forged by trauma, honed by centuries of constant brutal warfare. Her mind is described as a fortress.
Deely-eyed, emotional imperviousness, high pain tolerance, unbreakable focus.
Right, and while she doesn't seem to have, like, innate psychic shields...
Like Astarion might develop.
Potentially, yeah. Selene's defense against mental attacks comes from pure discipline, raw willpower. Her mind is a psychic battlefield she defends through sheer force of will.
So where's the vulnerability then, if any?
Well, theoretically, overwhelming physical destruction could eventually tax her healing, dismemberment maybe. But against Astarion, the key potential weak point is that her mental defense relies entirely on her willpower. It's not automatic. It's an active defense he can potentially target and wear down.
Okay, interesting. A potential crack in the fortress. Now let's flip to Astarion, the cunning ascendant scion.
His background is equally dark, just different. High elf noble, then nearly 200 years as Cazador's tormented spawn. Abuse, isolation, that horrible time in the tomb.
Builds a certain kind of resilience, I guess?
Yeah.
Or breaks you?
Right. But the tadpole, that was his unexpected lifeline. Freedom from Cazador's control, bypassing those huge spawn weaknesses like sunlight.
And unlocking powers. Plus, he already had his high elf traits, dark vision, advantage against charm and sleep.
And his rogue skills, don't forget those. Stealth, acrobatics, deception, persuasion, expertise in manipulating people. He was already cunning and slippery before the big power-ups.
And then he goes through the Ascendant ritual. 7,000 souls. Dark stuff.
Very dark. But it made him a true vampire in terms of capabilities. Enhanced bite that heals him, misty escape for that quick invulnerability and repositioning.
Bonus necrotic damage and, crucially, permanent sunlight immunity. No longer a vulnerable spawn.
Exactly. But the analysis really hammers home that his biggest weapon, especially against someone like Selene, is that suite of maximized illithid mind powers from the tadpole.
Okay, so what does that give him specifically?
A whole toolkit. Mobility and defense. He can fly, he can turn into a displacer beast, which is tough, hard to hit, has decent HP. He can create a shield of thralls for temp HP that might stun attackers.
Okay, movement and defense covered. What about offense?
Mind Blast, a cone of psychic energy, potential stun. Psionic Overload for extra psychic damage, but it hurts him a bit too. Ability Drain to weaken Selene's stats directly. Fracture Psyche to lower her AC, make her easier to hit.
And the big one, Cull the Weak.
Yeah, instant kill if he gets the target's HP low enough. A direct consequence of embracing those illithid powers. Very dangerous.
Plus utility stuff, like guaranteeing crits.
Luck of the Far Realms for a guaranteed crit, yeah. Favorable beginnings for better opening checks, psionic dominance to potentially counter abilities, mind sanctuary for action economy flexibility, free cast for using powers without using a resource slot, even a reaction to charm attackers. It's a huge list.
Wow. That sounds almost overwhelming. What's the catch?
The catch, according to the sources, is that a lot of this stuff is limited use. per encounter, per short rest, per long rest. He can't just spam Mind Blast or Cull the Weak over and over. He has cooldowns.
Okay, resource management becomes key for him. Any other vulnerabilities?
The analysis mentions potential arrogance, megalomania, now that he has all this power, could lead to tactical errors, and his power is tied to that ritual and the tadpole.
And fundamentally, against Selene's raw physical power, if he can't control the fight or take her down quickly, he might just get overpowered physically.
That's the risk, yeah. If his abilities run out or she resists the key ones, he could be in trouble against her sheer strength and endurance.
All right, let's put them head to head then. Peak versus peak, physical attributes first.
Physically, Selene seems way ahead. That 100-ton force estimate. It just dwarfs Astarion's likely strengths, even in Displacer Beast form, maybe. Her durability and regeneration are also likely far more sustainable.
Astarion's bite heals him, but it's probably not the constant passive healing Selene has.
Probably not. Selene's faster on the ground, but Astarion gets that crucial flight.
And Misty escape for those moments of get out of jail free.
Exactly. Mobility is interesting. Speed versus flight and teleportation.
Okay, skills and versatility.
Very different. Selene has 600+ years of direct warfare experience, master of conventional fighting, weapons, tactics.
Astarion's experience is more. Survival, cunning, manipulation for centuries. Less large-scale battle command, more back-alley ruthlessness.
Right. But his versatility goes way up with the rogue skills combined with Ascended and especially those illithid powers. His toolkit is just much, much broader. Stealth, debuff, psychic damage, control.
Selene's more direct. Overwhelming force, masterful execution of known combat techniques.
Pretty much, which leads to the supernatural psionic comparison. This is where the sources say the dynamic really shifts. Selene has her biological enhancements and that incredible mental grit.
Astarion brings the ascended powers and that whole library of illithid psionics. Flight, shape-shifting, stuns, drains, mind blasts.
And the analysis stresses, this isn't just a physical anymore, it's a massive mental contest now. Astarion psionics versus Selene's fortress of a mind.
Strategically. Veteran commander versus master manipulator with psychic powers.
Selene's advantage is focus under pressure. Astarion's potential weakness is that arrogance creeping in.
So, paths to victory for Selene.
Overwhelm him physically. End the fight before he can burn through his limited-use big guns. She needs to tank or resist his psychic onslaught with her willpower and just keep coming. Relentless pressure outlast his resources.
And for Astarion.
Use range, use flight, use Misty Escape, hit and run. He has to target her mind, exploit the fact her defense is willpower, not innate. Use Mind Blast, Ability Drain, Fracture Psyche to soften her up. And then try for a finisher with Cull the Weak or a lucky crit via Luck of the Far Realms. He needs to break her will or get her HP down fast, despite her healing.
Okay, so that brings us to the revised verdict.
Yeah.
Because the analysis didn't initially land where it ended up, right?
Right. Initially, you look at Astarion's list of psionic powers, and it looks like curtains for Selene. How does she stop Mind Blast spam or Cull the Weak?
But then they dug deeper into Selene's history, her training.
Exactly. 6 centuries of horrific warfare, military discipline. They concluded she's not just not immune, she's highly resistant to mental attacks due to sheer conditioning and willpower. She's not an easy mental target.
So it's not an instant win for Astarion's mind powers.
No. It becomes, as the source puts it, a grueling contest of wills. He has to actively work to break her mental defenses, maybe repeatedly. He can just flip a switch.
And while he's doing that...
Selene's physical advantages are constantly in play. Her strength, speed, regeneration, durability. She can likely endure his initial psychic volleys and keep pressing her physical attack.
And Astarion's best tricks have cooldowns.
Right. Mind Blast, Cull the Weak, Luck of the Far Realms, Displacer Beast form, those are limited. Selene's resilience, her physical power, her healing, those are constant. She doesn't run out of willpower charges the way he runs out of Mind Blast uses per fight.
So the pendulum swings back. Maybe even towards Selene.
That's what the revised analysis suggests. It becomes a much closer fight, potentially tilting towards Selene because her core strengths are constant, while Astarion's fight enders are limited resources. Her unwavering focus and mental toughness become massive defensive assets.
It's a race then. Astarion tries to land a knockout blow with his limited psychic nukes before she grinds him down or he runs out of tricks.
Exactly. Can he crack her mind or get her low enough for Cull the Weak despite her healing, using his finite bursts of power? Or does she weather the storm, outlast his resources, and just overwhelm him with relentless physical and mental pressure? The conclusion is, Selene is incredibly hard to break.
So wrapping this deep dive up, the big takeaway from the sources seems to be that this battle isn't just about the flashy powers. That unseen factor, Selene's mental fortitude, completely reshaped the analysis.
Yeah, it wasn't just a physical clash, it became a test of will, resilience against potent, psychic and unconventional attacks. The mental battle was just as important, if not more so.
Which leaves us with a thought for you, audience. How often, maybe even in real life, are tough situations decided less by the obvious visible strengths
And more by that hidden resilience, that deep focus, or maybe some specific unexpected capability someone brings to the table. Sometimes the stuff you don't see coming is what really matters.
Remember, you're awesome. Never let the world tell you otherwise.
Stay safe. Stay sane.